Hey everybody, so sorry. I'm a couple minutes late. I'm so sorry. I was getting the last minute things together and I looked over and I thought, oh my gosh, I need to be on. So here I am. So I hope you are out there. Say hello. Hi Elsie, thanks for joining. Today I'm going to be working on my Tile Titans block number 2. So I want to go ahead and put up number 1. So in case you haven't seen number 1, my plan is to work on 12 Tile Titan blocks, and they'll be available during the development time. And then after they're all finished, they're going to go away and they're going to go on to the So Steady University. So I'm going to put this up here so you could see better. So this was number 1. So let's see if we can just come out a little bit. Hi, Teresa Becker. Hi, Sandy. Okay, so have you guys seen this one? You remember this one from before? Looks so awesome, right? I used the feathers and the 11.5 curly Q spin effects. So love that. Just very excited. And of course, this is my all-time favorite spin effects number 11. Love it. So today we're going to use some quite different tools, a totally different grouping of tools. And with the Tile Titans, I mean, my goal is to expose you to tools that we have that maybe you have not seen before. It doesn't mean that you have to go out and buy every one. You can always adapt the design to what you have, or use just a couple of the blocks that you like and repeat those with the tools that you have. So this is the block for today. Somebody recently asked me, please show the pencil drawing. I don't always have a pencil drawing. Sometimes I just have what's in my brain. But I do for the Tile Titans because I've tried a few different things. And one of the big things that we're going to talk about today is how, as we're developing the design, how do we know where this comes in? You know, if we're sewing this and we sew this straight line, it's going to be interrupted here. How do we develop this? How do we know that I can make these flower petals and make them fit and touch the crosshair if the template is so wide? So a lot of the things for Tile Titans 2 is developmental knowledge. As you're developing your design, what are some decisions that you can decide on to make your design fit or not fit? Because the templates only do what they do. We have to control how they connect with each other and how they talk to each other. So this is number 2. And what you see is kind of a representation, but realize that I'm playing. This is not a complete design development here, but I've got my little notes on the side, and this is my So Steady design pad, but I have a couple of them that have the inaccurate grid, you know, the irregular grid. It's not true to size. So I'm using the tar out of these big, awesome pieces of paper. The first piece for the design, let me put the fabric up here, is I did mark my tile, and I marked them with the 8-point crosshair. So right off the bat, this is segmented in 8 units. All of the Tile Titans are going to use the 8-point crosshair. And the reason for that is the tile concept is based on a tile that you would buy that has a connector. So if I put 4 of the tiles together, it makes sort of that medallion look. So consistently for Tile Titans, only 8-point crosshair. I'm just going to keep it simple so you'll always know that that's the basis for it. So I've marked the center, and I've marked my 8 lines, and I've got on my X right here and right here, I'm marking a dot 3.5 inches away from the center on the diagonal. So let me show you what that looks like. I'm using that SewBiz ruler. So 3.5, right? Well, 2 of those is 7. So if I put my 3.5 inch mark right on the center position, right along the line, I can mark a dot and I can mark a dot. Remember that this is the diagonal, and I've done the same over here. And for reference, I want to take this line right there, and we're going to make this on point shape. So from this dot to this line, I'm going to square up this ruler right there, and I'm going to mark that line. So the start of my design was this square. The basis for it was this inner square, and then making that pretty, making that kind of look fabulous is the goal. So this is the diagonal. This is at 3.5 inches from the center, okay, this way. And then I'm going to align my straight edge on my crosshair line, and I'm going to connect it to these other crosshairs. And then should be a square. And the reason I'm not just making a square, I know somebody's going to ask me that, because if I tried that, it's like something weird. It's a weird number. Okay, so we are just going to go with my my straight edge because I know that that's going to work. Okay. All right, so let's get this lined up on my straight edge right there. And this is where we're going to touch. Here's my point. And we'll just cross it over to the center line. And the same thing here. Center it on the dot. A little fudging is fine. I don't care if it's perfectly perfect or not. Although I'd like it to be perfect, but it may not be. Okay, pretty close. I think we're good. If it was way off, I would make some adjustment, but it isn't. Now, we're starting with the 2-inch circle, and that's just the center of the flower. I could do any kind of embellishment, or I could echo that, but I think that that will stabilize the center of the block. Okay, so we'll put that in. That's pretty easy. That's not complicated. I'll talk about circle mechanics when we start this, because we do have people that are new to the templates. This one will line up pretty much perfectly. Every one of these lines will line up if I have my 8-point crosshair. Here, here, here. So that tells me that this is in the center. If all of these cross marks line up, perfectly centered. So let's go ahead and start with that. Let me press a few buttons, make sure my setting is proper. I don't have a thick batting, so I'm using a little bit of a lighter. Oh my goodness, I just thought, do I have a bobbin? Let me put this other, I was sewing something else. So, you know how it is. It's always something, right? Roll this back. It's so easy. People ask me all the time, well, how do I access my bobbin? Simple. Just gently roll your glider back, and I just gently roll it under the foot. I just leave it hanging there while I fix my bobbin, and then I'm ready to go. Let me see if I can start this poor bobbin. I can't find the beginning. Look at it. It's like perfectly smooth. Where is it? Oh, I got it right there. Perfect. Okay. All right. So now you know. Just roll that back. Don't forget to put your cover on. I have forgotten this, and then it's under my glider, which is kind of hilarious. But here, just compress this just slightly to get it under the foot, and just pull this thread out so it's not going to get trapped under there. Okay. Just get him over there. And then I'm just going to smooth this right back into place. My glider is super highly polished. Look. Woo! It's like playing bumper cars. Use your polish kit. It's awesome. Okay, let's make sure that our bobbin thread is long enough for us to pull it up, because I always struggle with that. You know I do. So I've got it long, and we'll get this all lined up again. Quickly, quickly. Right there. Very nice. We can start anywhere. Typically, if I'm doing this, this isn't going to connect to any other parts of the design, so I really don't need to worry about where I start, where I end, and I can actually go ahead and stitch around more than one time just to put some extra thread to lay down there. This is a beautiful kind of a teal blue color. When we're working with the circle, right now I'm pulling this forward. Okay, the whole template is being pushed against the back of the foot. By the time I'm traveling over to here, I'm going to be pushing the template that way. By the time I'm here, the template's going that way. I like these 4 grips on here so that I can right away change my pressure as I'm going around a circle. And this is pretty much true for any of the templates that have this sort of 4 corners and are going around in a circle type of thing. It doesn't have to be a circle. It could be a 360-degree design, and these 4 corner stable tapes will still be helpful. Okay, so yes, I am going to tie this off. Little tacking stitches right here, little small ones. Let your needle stop and go ahead, and we're going to cut that. There's no good way to connect this design to any of the other parts, so why bother? It's too complicated. Just cut it. Don't be afraid of that. If you need to restart your design and you have a good place to stop, just stop. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Quilters do that all the time. I think when I was a new quilter, I kept worrying about that. I kept thinking that I couldn't do that, but you can. It's not a problem. All right, get these threads out of here. Okay, so I'm done with that, right? That was easy. All right, let's start with the next part, which is our flower, and I'm going to just show you on here. If this is the center position, when I put my oval on, I want to be able to touch these crosshair lines. And that's how I decided how far up that this oval could go. The one that I'm using is this 3 by 1.5, and this is from the Fun and Fancy set, or it's also available in this simple oval set, right? The simple oval has the 3 different ovals, and it actually includes the inside piece and the outside piece for all of them. So this middle size, 3.5 by 1, is the one from the Fun and Fancy set. And then this one is super cute. I'll show it to you just because it's so tiny and it's adorable. It's like a little baby, right? Look at how cute that is. And then the big one we'll be using during the course of our session. So I'll show it to you when we get to that part. All right, so let me grab it. The one that I had did not have any stable tape on it, and this one does. So I'm going to use the one with stable tape on it. When I lined this up, if I put this opening right here, the edge of this plastic, right on the center position, I could align this in such a way that my 1/4 inch touches this crosshair line. Wherever that touched, this is a very clear, obvious place to align the template. There's no guessing. If I wanted to, I could put an additional center line in here to line up my oval, but I'm just going to use these little marks right here and try to make them the same distance away from the crosshair. And visually, I can look and see, because there's only one place where I'm going to have a 1/4 inch on each side. Okay, so that's my goal with this, is to create some repeatable reference line that I can use so that I can get all the way around and all these petals will be basically the same. If they're a tiny bit big or small, I don't care. You know how that is, right? It's fine. So we're looking to align this right on the center, and as we put it on, I want that 1/4 inch right there on each side. Where am I going to touch? And these little straight lines should be the same distance away from the crosshair. So when I'm doing it, I'm stopping on the crosshair. I'm not going to go any further. Okay? So don't make the mistake of starting down at the circle, because that is not our goal. We are creating some other bit on here, and it is not going to touch that center piece. They are not connected. Okay, so that's random rule number 1 for the day. So let's cross over. Here we go. Okay, right to our crosshair line, and then I'll just get these out of our way. Each time, aligning there, our foot should be touching the ruler foot, and then I can just check on the other side. It should look pretty straightforward. I should be in the middle here, and I should have approximately the same amount of space on each side. So a little bit of adjustment is okay. Can you see that we're right on the crosshair line? And we're going to sew over to the next one. Okay, I could even measure this line, this distance from the circle to there, and use the Circle Works outer rim tool and mark those, but it's okay. I don't need that level of perfection, but if I wanted that, I could have it for sure. Okay, so centered right there, trying to make sure we have a nice orientation kind of right in the middle, and checking my little straight reference lines that are out there. Okay, to the crosshair line and rotate, and here we go. Okay, we'll keep on going. All right, so that one looks a little bit bigger right there, so I'm just going to do a little adjusting, a little smushy. Okay, keep aligning, getting them nice and pretty, right? Fitting in there. Let the needle stop, and we'll do these last couple. So I'm looking back there, I can see right where my needle is lined up, and I'm using those two lines, so it looks like I need a tiny shift of orientation so that these right here, the white line and the crosshair, they have the same amount of space between them. So I can always make a design more perfect by adding more lines, more references, more measurements. The issue is, how many lines do you want to make, right? We get sick of making lines sometimes. We just want to sew. So sometimes if I really need that perfection, I'll be a lot more restrictive about what I want. Now, I am a tiny bit short of my 1/4 inch, so I'm going to fudge just slightly to open that up right there, or maybe push that up just a little bit. And I can always adjust as well at the top of the petal. Right here, when I get to this, I can make a very small adjustment right there so that I can get my needle right where I want on the crosshair line. Okay, and I think I still need 1 stitch to get there. So let's tie this off before we cut anything. Okay, little tacking stitches right in my existing stitch line right there. And now this is completed. So always pulling about 6 inches away. That way I can get that bobbin thread and draw it up to the top, and I can cut it off. I've already done the tacking stitches, so my thread is not going to come out. And I've got a lot of threads here because we have our start and stop at the same position. Now that we're done, I'll just clip them close. Make sure I've got everybody trimmed off. All right, so I'm going to pull it up just so you can kind of see where we're going with that. Okay, what do you think so far? Can you see it at all? Okay, so we've got that. We want to put a little bit of an echo on there. So this is the inner oval, and if I line the inner oval up pretty much, it's a little bit bigger, then I can use that as an echo. So this would just allow us to set that right on the top, and I can use that side and create an echo. If I want the echo to be a little bit bigger, I can just push this up so that I have this 1/4 inch right there, and that still leaves me enough space to sew that in. And remember that we are going to go from crosshair line to crosshair line again, just like we did before. It's the same. Okay? Use the ruler, put it in place, the template. Then you'll know where the foot will go. It's going to go on the crosshair line. I'm holding that because the template is telling me where is my start point right there. Okay, so it's a 1/4 inch around right here, and we'll just start sewing around. The crosshair line is my stop position. Okay, and then line it up right there, And you kind of want to look at it, right? We want it to be straight on pretty much. So if my foot isn't touching, I think I have like one more stitch I could do. I'm just going to take it just to get into position. My finger right here on this stable tape, kind of out of the way, but still holding nice and secure. Okay, next one, aligning it as best I can, trying to be about 1/4 of an inch, making sure my foot is touching, and just going around. I can't see my line too well there, but I'm going to fudge it right there, about right there. I can tell because this 1/4 inch is what I need. Let me show you with my tool. Okay, right there. I can see that there is a 1/4 inch between the stitch line and the foot. Let's see if we can bring you guys in just a little closer so you can see it too. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for right there. As the foot comes around, I know what spacing I need in order to move this to the next one. Okay, so this one's going to be, I think, a little tighter actually for some reason. It's okay, it's fine. I'll just move that line out a tiny bit later if I need to. Right? This is our design. We're in charge. We control it. Nobody else does. So right here, the way I'm holding, I'm just going to put my hand back there, and I'm actually going to adjust this just slightly because it flanges out just a little bit to be bigger than 1/4. So I could see that it looked a little wide. So right here, if it opens up in the wrong direction, it'll start to look really big. So let me show you what we're looking for. Let me turn it all the way around. Can you guys see that? So I'm going to try to line it up right on the 1/4 inch and try to make sure that this distance right there is at 1/4 inch. So that side needs to come in just a little bit so that the foot will be touching. Okay, stopping on my crosshair line and then just shifting to the next position. There's my crosshair line right there, and we are almost done. I love how this echo really enhances this whole design. It just changes everything, and it makes it look so much richer. So right here, this is the 1/4 inch, right? So we would want to maybe check that with our spacing gauge. I am pretty close to good on it, but I think I'm going to just adapt it one little bit because I want to come right into that spot right there. Perfect, right there. And then let's just tie it off. All right, let's see if we can get a little more light over here. Can you guys see well? I don't have my other computer because it is somewhere else being used. So I am not able to see the comments. So if I'm not responding appropriately, that is why. So I will try to do what I can to respond to comments as we go. All right, let me see. Did I get my bobbin thread up? I'm not sure if I did or not. I got distracted there. Could you tell? Okay, it's cut. All right, we're good to go. So far, I'm loving it. What do you think? I think it looks so cool. Oh my goodness, it's pretty fun. So as we're doing this part of it, I wanted to put maybe my little grand leaf in here. And I was trying to think about how I could get it in there nice and smoothly. But I think I'm going to put it in the larger section, right? When we put that next unit on, I'm going to put it in the arc out here just because I think there's a little bit more room. You see, I tested it in a couple of places, right? I tested it here and here. And the way that we've done it, this is just a little tighter. These do kind of come all the way out to this line. So if I pushed my line, if I use this as the stitch line, then I will have a little bit more room and I could come and put these in. This will be closed, right? Because we've already stitched it, but then these can still attach right there and just go in on top. So we'll see how much room there is after we're done, okay? All right, so let's talk about now doing this square and putting those ovals in. Okay? I'll show you what we've done here. The square is kind of this tile anchor right here, and it has that separation. So we've already marked this line, and I'm going to use that as sort of the stitch line. We're going to create a little space here, so we'll just make it slightly bigger by lining up the straight edge on that line. I'll show you what I mean. When we sew it, we marked this line, and if I line this up on the line like that, it's going to push it out just a little bit more. Okay? So that will give us just a little bit of easement here instead of having this stitch touch this. I don't really want it to. I want it to give it a little bit of breathing room, right? Because I think that'll look good. So when we put that on, I'm going to align right now this oval that's going to be this part, and I'm going to put a little dot with my stitching line discs, because as I sew across, I need to know where to stop for this so that there is nothing in here. All right, so let's do that. That's our next task. That's the designing aspect of this. So we're going to use a nice big oval. I love it. Oh, it's so pretty. Look at that. Gorgeous. So the difference between these two, right? This part, the outer part, is the 2x4. You can see it right there. Okay. When I sew this inner part, remember that here the foot is on the inside of this shape. So it's going to make this shape smaller by 1/4 inch on this side, 1/4 inch on this side, and the same in these directions. So the oval will be smaller than this shape. So when I sew this one, it's actually going to make the shape bigger by the 1/4 inch on this side and on this side and on these two sides. So the difference between these two is going to be 1/2 inch. So if this sews 2x4, this will sew 2.5 by 4.5, the inside part. And if I wanted to echo this, we have a good potential to put our echo ring on our foot to easily get a perfect echo of this. So that's my goal. We're going to make both of those shapes with this one, and one will be by itself aligned on the center, and then one we will sew with our echo ring. Okay? All right. So let's go ahead and we'll mark that real quick. I'll show you what I want here. We want 1/4 inch because that's where we're going to sew it. So I'll just mark this real quick just so we have a visual. So this will line up like this, and where we're going to touch is where we're going to stop sewing so we can put the oval on. So I'm going to use my stitching line discs, and I'm going to mark that on each one of these sections so I know where to stop, right? So approximately right there. So I don't always know. I mean, I could guess, I could kind of scooch up here, but I think if I have the potential to know where I'm going to stop and it's just a dot, that's pretty easy. I don't need something complicated, and I'm willing to make those marks just to make my life easier, right? It's just so much simpler if I know, okay, I'm going to stop right here. So again, we'll line this up right on that center position like that, and just use your stitching line disc. You could estimate it, but the stitching line disc, I think, is just a little bit more accurate. And make sure that you're using the proper marking tool that will actually fit in your disc. They should basically match up in size and not wiggle around too much. Okay? All right, let's keep going. Are you guys still with me? I'm going to see, like, who heard me. Hi, Deanna. I love hanging out with you guys. I love playing and just creating and having a good time. So much of what we do on Sunday, for me, it's really fun. I just really appreciate the opportunity to share these skills with people, and I know that you guys are interested in that because, you know, we're all here because we're quilters, so it's fun. Next week, I will be gone. I do have a job, but I believe I will be back by Sunday, so not a problem. We should be totally fine to go ahead and see you guys next week. Do I know what I'm doing? Di Warner can tell you. No, I probably don't. We'll have to work on it. I'll work on it while I'm gone this week. All right, line that up and put your little stitching line disc. Would I actually do this? You guys know I would, right? Yes, I would go through all these markings just like I'm doing right now because that's exactly how I'll get the results that I want to have. All right, let's put our tools away, keep them. All right, let's go ahead and start sewing it around. We're using, this is the 3x8, okay? You can see this is SR 3x8. So you'll see that if you ever want to get any of the straight rulers, they're listed by their size like that. So SR is straight ruler. And you can see I've got some grips basically near the edge. I never want to be holding far away from the edge. I always want my fingers a little bit near the edge, close to the foot. Let's see, what didn't look centered? I don't know. Did I mess up? Let's check. No, I think it's good. Yeah. I'll check it. When we put it on, if it doesn't look right, I'll make an adjustment, but I'm pretty sure it is. So far, so good. I'll have to go back and see what you saw, but I don't have the ability to see where that came in. Okay, let's talk about handles for a second. These are the Ada handles from So Steady. They have an adhesive. I'll show you on the back. This little strip right here is an adhesive. They have a little brown paper on them too that is pull-offable that's on here. And I like it because I can rest my fingers along it like that. And it also, even if my fingers are across it like that, it kind of gives me some sensory leverage. So I just really appreciate that. It's not suitable for all templates. I definitely could put a small one here. I have some that are like 2 bumps or 1 bump, and they could definitely go on one of these. But that I use them a lot on the straight ruler. So remember what we said here. We're going to start at the dot and we'll go around and we'll stop at the dot and put the arc in. So we don't want to sew just anywhere. Make sure that when you start sewing that you are not compromising your arc where you want to be, that little oval. So line that up. We want to put it right on the existing line. Remember, we're going to stitch a 1/4 inch away from that. So give or take. Let's see if I can line it up. The camera is kind of in my way there. Okay, here we go. A lot of talking today, sorry. All right. And oh, I was trying to get it aligned and I pressed the wrong button. Can you tell? I was trying to press needle down and I pressed foot up. That did not work out. So let me show you one more thing that we can kind of do if we want to. We can push this up and we can sort of use this straight line on the reference line right there as well to help us square up the project. Okay, so we're going to the crosshair line. We have already said that many times. That inner cross mark is really our big friend for helping to create this whole block. Okay, same thing. We should be able to align this. I can use that center line right on the center, right here on the crosshair line, because that's what we're doing. We're sewing a 1/4 inch away from that. I'm going to sew until I basically get to my dot. My dot might not align perfectly, but I can stop pretty much right about where it should be. I can see it inside the foot. Now, we'll put this on and we'll line it up, and I'm going to sew all the way around to the other side. Notice I'm going to spread my fingers apart so I can hold on to this. Okay. All right, now I'm going to put this finger back here so I can shift my hand a little bit, get it out of the way. And then I'll stop when my foot is a 1/4 inch away from this line back here, because that's where the ruler is going to go, just like that. Okay. All right, here we go. Crosshair line and stop. And I can just put this back here, align it right on that marked line, and I'm stitching to that dot that we made as a reference. Okay. Put this back on, align it right in the center. Looks perfect. And here we go. So I'm going to creep my finger up so I can move this finger out of the way. And then if I need to adjust my hand, I'm just going to get those fingers out of the way so that I can continue sewing. Stopping on my dot, and also when my foot is on that straight line right there, it should touch the ruler. If it doesn't, I'm just going to continue down until it does. Okay, then we'll sew right up to the next crosshair line. Okay, just kind of pushing back over here. I'm going to adjust the camera just a little bit so we can get a little better view. I think we're a little too far out. I think it's also very zoomed in, so I'll zoom it back out. Hang on just a second. There we go. That'll give you a better view. Okay, all right. So far so good. I mean, I think it's looking pretty good. It's definitely giving us the look that we're going for. We're going to sew, and we'll go all the way around. So I know it seems like a lot of times we're just watching me sew type of thing, but I don't think that we can get the sense of it unless you see how we're actually traveling and moving around. So hopefully that'll be still very interesting for you and not boring. I'm looking for that dot right as my foot comes in, even if my needle isn't exactly on the dot, because those stitching line discs may have a little inaccuracy, but I can see that my needle is in line with the dot. And I can double check that when I line this up, grips down. I'm right on that line that we made, and I'm right along the center here, and I'm going to sew until I get to the dot. Okay? Nice and easy pressure. I'm not forcing anything. Here I can just lift up my finger gently. I'm looking for my foot to touch the reference line right there that we have made. This touching the line. That's how I know that we can realign and continue along. So I'm checking the back to make sure I'm aligned. And I think I'm maybe one stitch short. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch one stitch down to make sure that we're touching. Okay, there we go. I'm on the crosshair line. This is the last one, so we're going to be paying a little bit more attention as we go, just to make sure that we can close the design properly. Right here, I'm aligned right on the crosshair reference line. Let's see if I can show you. We'll just come down just a little bit. All right, here we go. So there's our dot right there. Looking for it inside my foot, trying to get my needle lined right up with it. Okay, put this on. Remember that we're using this outer line right here. So a little smushing. He's kind of a little out of alignment there. Okay, and I'm just going to scoot these out of the way. Checking for my foot to touch the reference line, because that is the line that we're using. Even though we've marked the line, we're really looking to align with this reference line right here, so that as I stitch forward right now, we'll close this portion of the design. Okay. All right, so that's our first round. Let's go ahead and take this out and we'll show you what we have. Scissors. I'm going to clean up my work area. Don't leave these little guys hanging out on there, right? They just wreak havoc. They can wrap around your ruler foot and they just really make things difficult. So take the extra time, go ahead and get them out. So far, this is what we have, right? I love it. I think it looks awesome so far. It's going good. All right, so now I want to echo this and I want to use my ruler foot. So let me show you a couple things about the echo rings. I'm going to grab mine real fast. Where's my bag? All right, let me grab them real quick. It seems like they're a little far away. This is what we're going to use. So we're going to put that on, and one of the things I wanted to share before we do it is I also want to show you how you can use these with your stitching line discs, right? So this shape right here, this is only a certain width. I might be able to get some echo, but I can't actually make this stitch out wider than it already is. In order for me to actually make it stitch wider, if I put this on and I kind of move it up just a little bit, then I can use this to get that 1/2 inch echo right there. So we'll still be lining that up, and this is going to make it a little bit further away. You can see that here the inside of the foot would be touching, and the needle's going to stitch that 1/4 inch away. So if we want a certain size, we can play with whichever we think will give us a little bit more space, right? So I can just put this on, and what I can see right away when I align this, if I use my stitching line discs, I can decide how much of an echo do I want. So let me get that back out, and I'll show you how you can put that inside of your little echo guide like that. So if this is what I want to sew, I can line that up just like that. Let me move some of these out of the way. This is how I can estimate what size am I going to get. And that is the reference that I want. I want this to be this perfect size. When I line this up, I want the same 1/2 inch that I have down here as this echo, right? So let's put this on. We'll do the same thing that we did before. This is where our stitches are going to come in when we echo this straight line. So this is our stop point again. I don't know if people know that in order to use them, we can use our echo rings with our actual stitching line discs, and that will help us if that's something that we want to sew out. So that gives us changing sizes right here as we work with our tools. So this will line up exactly the same as before, but when I put that echo foot on, now I'm going to have a much wider visual right there, which I love. Because it's going to echo the exact shape, we're going to get a perfect echo. It's going to look perfectly clean, just as if we had a bigger oval right there. All right, I told you, it's design day. Hopefully this is fun. It's fun for me too. All right, so we've got the reference lines. So we're echoing this with our straight ruler, and now we know where we're going to stop and put that on. And if I want to echo this, all I have to do is align my ruler right on that line, and my echo ring is going to give me the perfect echo there too. So I don't have to take it on and off. I literally just put it on, and I'll use it for this whole thing. All right. So I saw that Nan is on, and she is going to be doing a live class. She's in Sweden, and you know, we've been watching her. She's been doing a lot of amazing things since she joined our Sew Steady team, and I am super excited for her. So let's wish her good luck as she does her first live class in Sweden. And you know, we're all part of a community, so it's great that we can share the joy that other people are having and the experience. Somebody asked about my marking pen. This is my Styla Air Erase. I'm in the process of ordering some of these, so hopefully they'll be in pretty soon. And I love these because it is a roller ball. It writes so easy. Love it. So when I get these, I'll post those on my shop page and let you guys know if you're interested in those. Okay, let's put this on. First, I want to make sure that my thread will go through there and not get stuck as I'm putting it on. I think I did it the wrong way, this way. There we go. Sometimes I trap that thread in there and it's really annoying. Push down on it, and then I'm going to lift it up and just wiggle it a little bit. It's a nice secure fit on here, thank goodness. And when I start, I'm going to lower the foot and just make sure that I can move. It seems like it's still a little too far down, so I'm just going to wiggle it a little more to get it up. And oh, it's being a little tricky. I'm going to get my finger under there with my knee lift and just really kind of wiggle that. I want to feel that I can have the ring above the foot. Okay? I want to be able to move freely without it buckling right there or causing any problems. Okay, so let's go ahead and start sewing around. I'm excited about it. We can start anywhere on this straight line. I'm going to line this up right there, and it should give us pretty much the same echo. Right there. Now I can't see my threads, but let's see how I did. Oh, right there. Okay, there we go. Right there. Oh, it'll be fine. We'll just stitch around. All right, let's put this on because we're almost there. So we need to go a little bit further. So we're looking for that line. That's where our needle should be, just for your personal knowledge, right? That's where our needle's going to go. All right, let's line that up. Make sure that we're touching because we're on the straight, and we're going to do the same thing. Okay, as we're coming down, this is the limit, right? So when that touches the stitch line, that's when we're going to stop. I do see it's a little bigger than I expected, but you know what? When that happens, something always fun happens. I just keep going. Okay, looking for my cross mark, my reference line. I don't know, it's fading on that side, but let's see. I think we'll have to go just a little bit further because we need to be able to align the bottom of the foot. Like that. Okay, and then again, as we sew over, remember that our needle is going to be in the marked line. So I can see there's where my needle needs to be. And then I'll put this on. Okay, change my hand position and keep stitching. Stopping when the foot, the echo ring, touches the line, and then we'll just keep going. Oh, darn it, I think I have one more stitch there. Oh, I'll fudge it. 1, 2, I can do that, right? You can't do. Okay, align it. Should be our needle touching the reference line. That's what we're looking for. And that should allow us to then align this bottom. So I think I might need maybe just one more stitch in order to get there. Okay. Perfectly aligned, stitching so that my needle enters our little reference line that we made. So my needle is right on the reference line, and now we can do the next section. Okay. Stopping right there and just continuing around. I think it's about right there. Let's see. Pretty good. So needle in the reference line, even though the ring is coming over, the reason for that is that this is based on where we're lining up right here. Changing my hand position. Okay, then we'll be coming around and we'll connect the dots here. Mary, thank you. Mary just made a very nice comment, so I'm very thankful for all of you guys out there. You guys are a good inspiration. You inspire me to do things, and you kind of get me out of my rut. So I love it. I'm going to try to connect this right up and use my little micro tacking right there. Get those all cleaned up. And now we can cut it. So my echo is a little bit bigger than I expected that it would be, but actually I think it looks fine, so I'm just going to go with it. See, that's what happens. I don't know what happened. It worked before. I think before I was just using on this, I was using the ruler as the reference, the template from the straight ruler, and just keeping this a 1/2 inch. But when you put the echo ring on, it changes things. so we're just going with it. That's what happens. All right, so far so good. I am loving that. What do you think? Doesn't that look super awesome? Now, let's talk about this little guy right here. I have 2 different sizes that I pulled out, and one was the one that would kind of fit into this space. So let's see. And it still will. We can actually put it right on there. We'll line up right there, and we sew around, and we put it in. So I'm going to let you guys decide. Do you want one of them in this part? Do you want one in this part? Or do you want both? So we have A or B or C. A is this one, okay? B is this one right here. It would be like this. We'd actually push it down so it connects right down there and it'd have a little gap. Or we can actually do both of those. So you can tell me what your preference is. Oh, Linda's like, I'm choosing right away. Good job. Okay, you want to see both. All right. So we don't have to do all of them just in the interest of time, but we'll try to do like 2 and the corner. We'll kind of go like this. If I was thinking ahead, which I obviously did not today, you could actually mark here and sew this in and then mark. But I think that that disrupts this oval a little bit and doesn't make it as clean. So when I ended up deciding that I was going to put these in, I was going to use this 1/4 inch right there as the alignment, and just whatever I got, and I'll tack it right there. If there's too much thread there and it's messy, this would be an example of when I would want to bury my threads using the self-threading needles. Because sometimes, like we talked about, this is very clean and continuous right all the way to the end. So if I just want to keep that look, maybe I will tie off the threads in order to not make this messy. Okay. All right, so different options. You can connect it or not. Let's take this off. I'm just going to wiggle this a little bit, just like that. It'll come right off. So you saw us use that sewing wise and also with our stitching line discs. So these are awesome for designing. Super easy. All right, let me just put them away. Otherwise they wander off and have a mind of their own. Okay, let's start on the arc and we'll just kind of go that way. So scoot this one over, line this up. Our foot can be our guide. If it fits on one side, it definitely should fit on the other side, right? So let's get it aligned right on the reference line. And right there, I think is good. We can actually even use this reference line right there. It perfectly aligns right there. So one side and then the other. Needle down, pick it up. Now, if you're going to bury your threads here, what that necessitates is a little longer tail. So take the time to make that tail longer if that is your goal right there. Pull these out so you have more tie-off room. And I'll do that at the end as well. So I'm going to precisely align my needle first and then align on the center because I definitely want to touch down there for sure. And this way I can make sure that I'm going to be touching pretty much on both sides. This is the Grand Leaf. This is a relatively new template that was released, I think, a month ago. I do have a project that I did for them so I can show you that maybe as a trunk show after we're done. Okay, so we're done. It looks awesome. I have to say, it fits so cute. Oh, I knew it would. When I saw these templates, I'm like, I totally saw a tile. So that's part of why this one definitely gets to be part of the Tile Titans, because it was like the first thing. As soon as I received them, I knew that it was going to be something like this. What just happened? Somehow it just picked up way more than it needed to. I'm not sure what happened. We'll make these longer and then we'll cut it. I'm sure it'll be fine. All right, cutting. This one is attached to the quilt and this one is the longer one. See? Cut the longer one when you're tying your threads off. Okay, we don't want to have any little shorties in there. We need this to be longer too, so let's make him longer as well. Hopefully I'm cutting the right side. Oh, did I? Good, perfect. So I'll tie these off later. I'll do one tie off just to show you my attack bunny method, but we won't tie them all off because otherwise that would take too long. All right, this is my bunny, right? And he's going to attack his prey and flip him over because he's an aggressive bunny. And then I'm just going to put those through there. There's a little knot. Before I tighten the knot, I want to move it where I want it. So I'm going to stick this in there so he can't escape and tighten the knot. And I want the knot about 1/2 of an inch from the edge of the quilt. If I try and tighten it all the way down super tight to the body of the quilt, you see where the knot is right there? He's far away. If he's right there, then I can't pop him through and hide him in the batting. I need a little slack in there. So try not to make your knot right up to the edge of your fabric. Put a little tension on your threads and then you can just put your threading needle on there. And I'll just go right down where we left off right there, just through the top layer and wiggle it into this batting and try to get as far away as I can and pull that. When I pull this, I'm going to hold these threads so they don't escape. And there's the pop. You could actually hear that audible sound. It pulled the knot through there. And now I don't care what happens to these threads. I'm just going to kind of feed them out of here so they'll go all the way through. There we go. And then I can take them off. When you're cutting, just bunch this part up a little bit. Okay, pinch it a little bit and then cut close but not too close. And when you press that out, it's gone. The thread tails will retract back into the quilt and you won't see them. So I'll just pick this up. This is what it's going to look like. So there will be no extra anything right there. And then we get this really cool shape right there between these two. I love that this is kind of like a little diamond right there. And then it comes out to the shape. All right, let's scoot over. We'll put this one in. We're going to do the same thing here. This is the 5.5 on this side, and this is the 3.5 on this side. So same thing. We're lining it up on the center, and we're using the foot as the guide. Let's see. It did something with my thread. I just want to make sure I'm still threaded. Oh, I see. It came out of my thread guide is what happened. All right. Just don't be ornery. Just get back in there. Okay, I think he's back where he belongs. Let me just check. He's just being very difficult, and for some reason, I'm fumbling around today to get it right in there. There we go. Okay, so again, lining up the template first, and then picking up your bobbin thread. I'm going to manually, carefully get my needle right in the existing stitch line, and then I can pick that thread up right there. Okay. Again, I want a little bit of a long tail. I'm trying to grab both of those. So people ask me lots of times why I do not wear quilting gloves. I was in a car accident and I hurt my hand, and I have a lot of difficulty now picking up fine things like thread. Like it used to never be a problem, and now it is. As we go around this grand leaf, right here, that's an outside curve, and several of these are. So especially on this small one, just go a little bit slower as you go around these little outside curves. And that's going to help you have a really nice, clean, pretty shape right there. We're right in our stitch line, so I'll just scoot that over. And again, we're tying off these threads to keep them extra pretty without any bulky mess right there. So I'm going to make a nice long tail. Try to come down exactly in your existing stitch line. That's going to keep all of that quite a bit cleaner for you. So lengthen this right here. This is the top thread. I'll cut it so it's nice and long. And I'm going to lengthen this bobbin thread also so that I have a good ability to tie this off, and cutting the side that is stretching. Okay, so these are for later. I will go ahead and tie those off. So I'll just get them out of the way for the moment. All right, and let's see, let's go on to the next part. So this is the base. Let me show you where we're at on our design, just so you can see it with me. So I was trying some different elements, right? I wanted to put a little bit more. This is too open to leave this unquilted. So this is my back-to-back 3-2, okay? So I'm going to just show you, I had some other ideas and I just felt like they did not work out. It did not look good to me, so I nixed it, right? So we've done all of this internal part. We've got all of our cute little arcs with our echo, all of this, and I would put each of these 4 units in the corner and put them in each of these little arcs right here. Well, if we have that many, I think it's important to not neglect them on the outside. So my plan right now is one will fit in here, the small one, which will match up with this little guy right here. So the little small one, he fits perfectly right in there. Okay, I'll show you. Right there. We can just line him up like that. And he can actually stitch all the way across on the bottom and make the little partial circle. So that's where he's going to go, just like that. And then this space from the center becomes a little bit bigger right there. It's a little longer. So I thought we could try and see if this will fit well like this. And as long as he can fit in there without fitting into that curve or creating some havoc on that curve, I think that this would look cool. So we're going to try to put this little bit bigger one in. If I had more space, I could even try and see if a bigger one could fit. Right now, we're just using the 3.5 and the 5.5, but I can always adapt and maybe try a different size if I wanted to. Okay, so let's move that out. We got all this thread on here, so I'm just going to leave that. Let's work on the other side so that we are not impeded by all this thread that needs to be tied off. We'll just kind of go on this side. So this is what we're working on. We're using the 3-2, which is from my Fun and Fancy set. It's also available by itself, and it's also available as set number 3. There are 3 different back-to-back number 3s, and you can buy them individually or as a set. This one is number 2. It's the one that has a 2-inch tall curvature. So from the bottom of this curve to the top, if you measure, it's 1 inch to the center. And then here it would be from the center line another inch. So this is 2 inches tall. And then the bottom one is 1.5 between these 2 arcs. Okay. So how did I put that in? I want to use this center position as the anchor on all of the sides. This block is 15.5 inches, right? So that means we need to come in and make our 1/4 inch dot because we don't want our curve to be outside of our seam allowance, right? So one of the easiest ways that I find to make marks like that is all of our little straight rulers have these great markings on them. So just use them. And I'll actually make it just slightly bigger than 1/4, just in case it shrinks up or creates any havoc for us. Just tiny, tiny bit bigger, not even an 1/8, just like a 1/16. So this one, I need this line to be visible, so I'm going to just lengthen it real quick. Use this straight edge. Okay. So right there, just a slight bit larger than that 1/4 inch for each of these. And that assures me that when I stitch this, because the seam allowance is actually a 1/4 inch right there, then I know that I'm not going to cut off my design, which I would be really irritated with. If I spent all that time making the design, I don't want to cut it off. Okay, so we're going to use, I think, this taller arc on here. I aligned that with my foot right at that dot. So I would align this right there, and I'm going to pivot this until I can get a 1/4 inch right there. That's the random rule that we're using to align this part. So let's start sewing it. It'll go all the way around, so I'll just move these in. My back-to-back 3-2 has grips on both sides, because you'll see in just a minute that it's quite common that with this back-to-back, you might flip it over and use it on another side. So let me turn this. I want to show you what we're looking for. We need to make sure that the pivot is enough for us to get in. So again, if we want to template that or use our spacing gauge, a reason why you might want to template this with your stitching line disc is because this curve is maybe harder to align right here, to align your spacing gauge straight. Whereas if I put my little disc on there, I know where the center of that is going to be. So if it's not lined up, then I'm going to shift it to get it right in the middle, right there. Okay? And then I'll just keep that handy because we will need that a couple of times as we sew. Once we align it here so that we get to this position, we'll flip it around, and it should definitely get us back to the other side without any trouble. Okay, I'm going to adjust my hand position. Right into our crosshair line. And now I want this same dip to be on the inside, and I want to get back to this center dot right there on the bottom where we know we need to be. So here we go. I'm activating the grips right here, kind of moving my finger up a little bit. Right into my crosshair line, and then the same thing. I'm going to flip it over again. This one has the deeper dip here, and the shallower one is echoing this part of the design. And I actually chose that because I felt like it was a good mimic for this and this. They kind of fit together nicely, and they keep the shape of that existing curvature that we spent so much time making. Okay, so here we go. Okay, I'll put this away. That's a little bit wonky. All right, can somebody help me? Can somebody post the time for me? Because I don't even know what time it is. I told you my computer is not here, so I actually have no idea what time it is. Okay, so flip it over, and then we'll align it again back here on our little dot that we made. This, I think, is a very important knowledge. I always try to make those reference lines when I have a sort of quilt as you go piece where I can't necessarily see where this final destination is, then I don't want to cut those off. So if you have things that are emanating from your corner, always mark in your seam allowance and make sure that you use slightly inside that as the reference. That way you never have to cut your design off, which I appreciate. Am I doing this right? I think I am. I flipped it over. Okay, good. I was just worried. I was double checking. That happens when I talk. Then I'm like, wait, did I do it the right way? Don't bother me while I'm sewing, right? Right into our crosshair mark. Oh, perfect. It's beautiful. I'm going to move this little guy so he doesn't get knocked off. So we came in, and again, we want to flip that around. Okay, so we want this curvature here. This is what we're looking for, so that these kind of match up together. And then we'll put our little circle on there. That is definitely helping me get my exact spacing that I want right there, so that I'm right on my crosshair line. Let's see if I can see my crosshair line. There we go, right there. Okay, pretty good. And, you know, you can always fudge it. That happens. Like if I'm off a little bit or whatever, some small adjustment there, nobody's ever going to even be able to tell. Okay. Right into my crosshair mark and then flip it over. And I think it's easy when we're on these longer sides because we know exactly where we need to get to. It's not complicated. We're not guessing or anything like that. So maybe a tiny smush right here so I can get aligned. There's actually a really easy to see reference line to get right in there on this part. Notice how my hand is wide, and if I need a little more pressure, I can move down and make sure that I'm holding on that stable tape. Okay, right to my crosshair line, and then flip it over. And we really only have this last quadrant to go, so we are almost done. Could I guesstimate? Yes, I could, but if I did and I didn't hit my crosshair line, I'd be very annoyed. So I'm going to choose not to in this case. This design right now that we're doing has a lot of symmetry, and we're measuring it sort of on an angle. And what I found is I'm not as good at estimating the position on an angle as I am on the straight. Okay, right into my crosshair line. Oh, I love that accuracy. And that's why we do rulers, right? We want to be accurate. We want the design to do what we want it to do. This is our last part. I'm going to double check that I'm doing it correctly because I think it is not doing what I want. There we go. Flip it over, and I'm going to align it right to the finish with my little dot. Okay, so I think actually I'm going to need to adjust it after we sew. There's two places that it's easy to adjust. I can adjust the curve right here where this straight line is. If I move it slightly, you'll never see it because this is where the curve changes right there. So people will just perceive an imperceptible amount of lengthening right there. Or it's the same thing right here. And what I need is just a tiny movement right there to get myself right into that other design, right into the other spot. Okay, we'll tie it off right there, and I'm just going to stitch a few micro stitches right down the line, and we can cut all of these threads. Okay, cut. All right, let's see how we're doing. Oh, I love it. It looks so awesome, don't you think? And we can go ahead and put the echo in here using the same tool. And then from that center position, that's what you want to align on in order to put your design. So remember we said that if we put our grand leaf in there, we don't want him to be cut off. Right? So if he's a 1/4 inch away, or if he's lined up with this center position right there, we want to make sure that we are watching for that so that I can put him in right there. Okay? So when I did the echo for this other one, it's echoed on the inside, but it's a little tighter here because we made this wider. So we're going to have to echo that probably right into this. And I'm okay with that. If you don't know if you're going to like it or not, you can put this back on. We want this wider side, and we can use a space like this, right? You can even put your echo ring on there, and that will help you see what the spacing is. So this is looking pretty good. It would come in right there, and then we would still have this position. So let's just draw that in so you can see what it looks like. We can even use the random rule of this part right there as our limit. As long as we don't cut in, I don't know, we'll have to scoot that over just a little bit. No cutting into the existing design. That's not allowed, right? Oh, I think that would look awesome like that. don't you think? So it would basically start here. We would adjust the curve so he doesn't cut into this part right here. And then he would be here, and we'd have the mirror echo on this other side. Like that. So we can use these on either side. That'll be something that's kind of important for you when you're working with these back-to-backs. We can echo from either side. So this one would end up coming right in. That's probably more what we should get. I think this, to the point, we can align it there, but we should start sewing down here. Otherwise, we're going to end up coming in too far. So I'd position my foot there. This will be the echo right there. I actually think it looks awesome. And then we'll have our grand leaf right here and the two mirror grand leaves right here. So let's go ahead and put this one in so we can get that sense of it, and we'll put one of the ones in here, and then we'll be done for the day. All right, small one on the corner. I'm going to go ahead and, again, mark that corner in. We definitely want to know where our seam allowance is going to touch right there at the corner, and that's where we'll align for our design. And he's going to fit in there just fine. I'm positive. No problem at all. All right, here we go. All right. I just want to make sure that he'll be in this reference line right there. Come down just slightly so we can get him lined up. Okay, I'm going to hold these threads right here with my thumb. Oh, not that thread. He is misbehaving so much. He's just popped out of my thread guide again. Probably because I was pulling on him, right? He's not happy with me. Okay, so we'll just give a few gentle tacking stitches right at the beginning. And then, again, this shape requires us to go a little bit more slowly, especially this small one, because it has several of these little curvy things that happen so quickly. So a little bit more stitching, a little bit faster right there will help us. And what we can do here is I can literally just kind of stitch to the outside. Okay. We'll cut this. And just in case, I'm going to go ahead and tie these threads off right there because I don't want them to be outside of my seam allowance. Remember, we made the seam allowance a little big, so I'm going to tie these off to make sure. This one won't be, he'll be stitched in, but maybe this one won't be. So we'll be careful and just err on the side of caution there. Quilting, somebody just commented, I'm going to mention their comment. So they commented that quilting is so different from how their granny quilted. And many, many years ago when I was in my 20s and I was just starting to quilt, Georgia Bonesteel was very, very popular. She was the lap quilt queen. And her quilts were so artsy for the time. I mean, she was definitely a game changer for the quilting world. And I think she created a quilting renaissance that quilting was a high art. And there's actually many examples of amazing quilt art. So the Queen of Hawaii, my brother lives in Oahu, and we've seen the Queen's quilt during her basically imprisonment, and she made an amazing quilt that is telling so many stories. And I think that there's a lot of quilting icons that have been around, but now quilting is recognized. And I think the modern quilt artist that is the biggest influence for me is Carol Breyer Falliert, and she is an incredibly talented artist. And I saw her quilt one time, and it won best whatever at I'm pretty sure at Paducah. And she was the first machine quilter to win that honor, and she changed the industry for everybody. And I liken that to what rulers are doing for us today, because what's happening with templates is our domestic quilters now have access to an incredible array of tools, and we're better than we've ever been able to be. Our skills, our potential, our design power has been exponentially lifted up. So my hat is off to all the amazing quilt pioneers that have let us get to this point. So pretty fabulous. All right, so from this center position, let's go ahead. I want to show you one thing as we line this up. I want to be able to sew in to this point. So if I start out here and I sew in, remember that this is outside of our boundary. What that does is it ensures that our tie-off will be outside of our stitch allowance, our seam allowance, and no gaps will happen. And then we can just go right over to the other side. So then that's even better. Then we don't have to reposition or tie off or anything else. That should get us pretty close. Let's see, I got to think about it for a second. I'm going to tip it a little bit. I'll tell you why in just a second. I want to end right with my needle at that center position, right? So I'm going to fudge because that's what I want. Because of the way that this ends at the bottom, it flanges out. So I have tipped it just enough to get me right to the center right there so that my needle is right on that tip. And I'll do the same thing when I do this other side. So I'm just going to move these out of the way. See, I don't have to follow the lines. It's okay. You're in charge. I give you permission. All right, so we tipped it a little bit, as I said, and we're going to sew, let's see. We don't have the reference line on this side. I'm going to line this up 1/4 inch away. Right there, pretty much. And then we'll just sew around. It'll work out. I might have to double check that measurement next time and make sure that those are working well enough. But I think it will. Well enough that nobody will notice. Okay, we're done. I'm just going to use my thread cutter because I don't need to worry about where we are. Oh, I love it. I would consider, given how much of a gap there is here and how this is not sort of centered on the tallest portion, I really would consider putting the bigger one on. I didn't really test that because they start getting quite a bit bigger. I'm not even sure where my 7.5 is. I think it's missing in action. But I think that these would benefit from being a little further apart. It would put this arc a little bit more centered out here, and it will allow this to elongate into this curve a little bit more. So that's probably the one thing that I'll change. I'll probably take this out actually and do a little bit more work to align this and find exactly the position that I want and put the bigger one in here. Because visually, I think that looks skimpy to me. So I don't like that. I'm picky that way. You guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me today and going on the journey, the quilting journey today. I hope you had fun. I will post a picture of the finished project on my website, and I love all these beautiful curves. I think it looks fantastic. So we'll finish up all the details, and I'll post it on Fabricated Quilts and in the comments of this post, of this Tile Titans post. I'll actually put the picture there and on my own website. So looking forward to seeing you next week. I, at this point, believe that I will be available, and most likely, yes. So Linda asked if we could just move back a little bit. Hang on, and let's adjust our lighting and our camera so we can get a little further view. Okay, close your eyes. I'm going to take you off. Eyes. Right, we don't want you to get blinded or dizzy. All right. We have all these threads, but hopefully you'll be able to see it. Okay, ready? Here we go. Is that any better? Still not as much light, right? But you can kind of see it. So let's see if we can get you in a little further. So that's kind of the top half right there, and you can really see how cute that curve is. Isn't that fantastic? So let's see if I can show you from this side. I think we'll get better view. Oh yeah, that's much better. A little bit more shadow on it, right? So that is the finished project right there. So I'm going to add in the rest of those grand leaves so that we can finish up all of the details. I am going to pull that one out and change that to the bigger one. So we used circle 2-inch from the sampler set. We used the 3x1 oval and the oval echo for it as well. And then we used the 3x8 straight ruler to make the square, and we templated the inner oval from the 2x4 set. And then we used the echo foot to echo that, and we used the 3/4 inch echo on that. And then we used the back-to-back 3-2 for the frame, the curvy frame, and we're going to echo that as well on the inside. And then we're going to put in the rest of our grand leaves, which are the 3.5 inch on the insides of the square and the 5.5 right here on the little ovals right there. And then there, I think I'm going to use the 7 or the 9, I'm not sure. And that one is the 3.5 on the corner. Okay? Have a great weekend, you guys. Happy quilting. Go play. D, good question. So no, I will be out on Friday, but I'm going to try and see if I have a chance on Monday to tape another session of the triangle splash. I think we're on session number 5 to get a little more quilting on that, but I will try to put a note out there just to let you know whether it'll be on or it won't be. Okay? Thanks for asking. I appreciate that. Have a great weekend, you guys. Bye-bye.